Hey everyone, welcome back to another off the cuff chat with me, FPL Mez. It's been a while. Firstly, Happy New Year to everyone. Haven't really engaged that much on Twitter other than, or X even, or even on YouTube. It's been a fantastic holiday period that I've had anyway. I had a really good time catching up with friends and family and just taking a break from FPL as well. It's been a really nice break for me. I went did a lot of beach time actually. Just spent a lot of time on the beach, hung out with friends, spent time with, some family as well, and mostly just took it easy. Let me know what you got up to over the holiday period, and did you get up to anything interesting? Did you go anywhere? Did you have a holiday abroad or anything like that? Let me know. I love a good travel story as well. Yeah, it's been really, really good. It's been really nice to just have some of that downtime, have a break from FPL, like I mentioned. Not to say that, I desperately needed the downtime from FPL, but I think like it got really intense towards the end of the year from a work perspective for me as well. And as you know, those of you that have sort of joined previously, and hello to everyone that's, in the chat on YouTube and over on Spaces as well. Really appreciate you being here, especially in the morning. I know it's Sunday morning, so great to see you, Tian. Great to see you, Paulie. And Sam, yeah, great to see you there as well. And yeah, it is a bit of an awkward time because I don't really have a fixed time for when I'm doing the off the cuff series or the show. It's usually been morning for me and then evening over in the UK, or it's been evening for me and morning over in the UK. So it's a bit tricky, or the other way around basically. I think I just said the same thing. I'm not sure. But this time round, I thought may as well do it during the weekend because there's no matches on. Well, obviously the FA Cup matches are on. But there's no Premier League, and of course, there's going to be a bit of football action with AFCON kicking off, and also with the Asia Cup as well. So yeah, lots of exciting football to look forward to. I've been fully immersing myself into the tennis as well. So the tennis season is pretty strong over here in Australia. So I've been over to the United Cup. It's a shame that Australia's out of the United Cup now, but we've got the Australian Open coming up fairly soon as well. So a lot of my time gets spent between football and tennis. Basically, that's the two sports that I love engaging with. But look, let's talk about FPL and what this particular video or Spaces is going to be about. So those of you that are listening on Spaces, you may want to switch over to YouTube as well if you really fancy looking at some of the the visuals that I'm going to have. I'm going to be doing a retrospective, and for those that don't know what a retrospective is, it's an opportunity to look back over a period of time. Now, usually this is done in an agile way of working. It's usually like a scrum kind of an event where as a team, when you're working together, you may want to do a retrospective after 1 week, 2 weeks, depending on what your sprint looks like. And in our case, or in my case, and sharing my FPL journey with all of you, my sprint or my retrospective is going to be over the last sort of 10 game weeks. Basically, between game week 10 and game week 20. And so what I'm going to do is just look back at my season between game week 10 and game week 20 and just talk about what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, some of the things that I've learned along the way as well. What would I do differently if there's anything I would do differently? It'll be great to get any feedback from you guys in the chat as well. So if there's, things that you can relate to as part of what you've also experienced based on my experiences, please do give me like a love or a like, thumbs up or whatever, or just leave a comment in on Spaces or on YouTube in the chat as well. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to do a bit of a retrospective, have a look back, like if I show you. So the way I've broken up the retrospective is we're going to go through the Kanban board, which is like the board that you see if you're looking at this on YouTube on the right hand side, where I've got things like liked, lacked, and learned. So I like doing the three L's, particular one as a retrospective, and so we'll go through that, and then I'll just step through my season in terms of game week 10 to game week 20 as well. And I'll also sort of talk about some of my transfers, and you'll see sort of, the red, green and amber, that's basically to signal what transfers have gone well and what hasn't gone well. And I'll just talk through a few of those as well. And this time round, and something I didn't include when I did my retrospective of game week 1 to game week 8, what I didn't include is what my captaincy picks have been like. But this time round, because my captaincy picks, spoiler alert, because my captaincy picks have been so bad, I thought it'd be really useful to include that as well, like at least from game week 10 to game week 20. You can see there already, I've only had 55% successful picks. So that's what we're going to do today. We're just going to go through, the retro board, and I've already put some post-it notes on there as well. So that will take a little bit of time to get through. And like I said, if you have any comments, any suggestions or anything like that along the way, please do comment and add them in. And I'll read the comments out as well. So, these are very, very much one-sided. So those that are listening on Spaces, especially, I'm not going to be able to take any speakers. So if you're joining for the first time, it is pretty much one-sided unless I have a guest on. And so I have got a whole bunch of guests that I'll be bringing on in January and February as well. So so just to let you know that it is one-sided. So if you do request, I'm not going to be able to take your request to make you a speaker. That's a bit of an intro. These are very much off the cuff. The reason why I called them off the cuff, there's very little preparation gone into the streams that I've been doing, whether that's been on YouTube or if that's been on Twitter. It's been very, very much like just impromptu, and like the timings of it as well. I've not been consistent with days or anything like that. Duration wise, very sort of, we'll just go with the flow. That's been the best part of these types of conversations anyway. And it's pretty much what I'm thinking and feeling, and, things that are going on in my game week or in my season so far, as you can see. It's really appreciate you being here. So if you don't mind dropping a like or a subscribe, if you're not subscribed to the channel as well, that would be very, very much appreciated. All right, well, let's just jump into it. So for those that are curious, I'm using, actually, I'll show you, like, I've been using this board for quite some time, and I do my planning in here as well. So if I'm not using a physical board, and those that can see me, they can see like a physical board over here. I usually like doing my planning with post-it notes and a physical board or a wall or whatever, and just jotting down, ideas, thoughts, things that I'm thinking, onto a physical post-it note, and then, capturing that. But I do use virtual boards as well, a lot for my work, but also because it's useful, for stuff like this especially. So what I'm going to do is, let's start with some of the positives. So I'll sort of switch between like and lacked a little bit. So with what's gone well and what hasn't gone well. And I'll try and sort of keep on track with, the ones that I'm covering along the way as well. So look, from a liked point of view, my wildcard, it's really difficult to judge a wildcard straight off the bat, right? And in my case, I played my wildcard in game week 9. And so I have not included my wildcard week as part of my retrospective too much as well. So my first retro that I did for this season was game week 1 to game week 8, and this one is going to be game week 10 to game week 20. So I'm not including game week 9, mostly because it was a wildcard game week. And I know a lot of people sort of, base judgment whether their wildcard's gone well or not within that first game week. I don't like to do that, but I do think that my wildcard in game week 9 went reasonably well. Like it wasn't terrible or anything like that. It generally went okay. I got a green arrow off the back of that as well, so I can't really complain, from that point of view. I have taken a fair few hits, and so far I have to admit my hits have paid off. And I've been like, when I say a fair few hits, for context, in my first season I took 46 hits. That's not 46 points, that's 46 hits. And this season so far, I think I've just taken my 6th hit or something, or 5th or 6th hit. So it's not that bad either. So when I say, I've taken a fair few hits, that's because I'm comparing it to my last season, so my second season. I only took something like 3 or 4 hits throughout the whole season, or maybe maximum of 5 by the time I got to the end of the season, I think. So far I've taken already more than what I took last season in the first half of my season. But I have to admit, this time round, unlike my first season, the hits have paid off. So I'm quite happy that I continued to take, some of those hits that when I did. I brought in Trippier fairly early. I know like Trippier's come up in a lot of conversation more recently. He's not been doing very well. I brought in Trippier, I think game week 5, and I managed to bag a lot of his double-digit hauls. I think he had like 3 or 4 of them. And I'm so glad that I brought him in when I did. I also brought in Wilson at the same time, which wasn't great. But I'm glad that I held on to Trippier as well. It's not necessarily worked out well more recently, and I'll come to that when I cover the what hasn't gone well. And so moving on from that one, I then did I tried not to do too much overthinking. So what went well for me last season was, I didn't overthink my transfers, and which has been a really good thing. And this is where I've got arrows going into what didn't go well. I'll sort of speak to those ones as well. So, where I didn't overthink my transfers too much, I've also been reckless with them as well. So I think this is where I probably should have. I guess it's making, I've been able to make a lot of good gut calls last season. And what's been different for me this season is that because I didn't have a great start to the season, I started to kind of make a few reckless moves along the way. And when I say reckless move, I would say something along the lines of making early transfers, not overthinking it too much, not looking at stats too much, or, I like a couple of rookie mistakes here and there where I hadn't really done too much eye testing, or, so just things like that where I've kind of gone, okay, well, I didn't overthink my transfers, which has been a really good thing because I've made some good transfers as well along the way. But then, I've been a little bit reckless with the with the transfers as well. So it's a bit of a learning in that, I guess. I'd like to think anyway. I guess the learning. What would the learning be? I think the learning from that would probably be continue not don't overthink anyway, but be a bit more calculated in the have a strategy of going to data, or maybe use an algorithm or not use an algorithm. So this time round I actually have been using an algorithm a lot less than what I did last season. And even, in season 1, for me anyway, I didn't sort of use, haven't been using it as much. I've still been doing a little bit of a pulse check, but not been using it, to help me make those decisions along the way as well. So, yeah, I guess there's a bit of a learning in that. There's a fine balance between those two, with the overthinking of the transfers. I have been swayed a fair bit this time, just talking to friends about it, or talking to, just chatting with the FPL community on X as well. So yeah, maybe there's something more in that. I'm not sure. Actually, while we're down here in sort of in the in-between world, so over here I've got Mitoma to Mbumo. So I think it was only 3 weeks or so that I only had Mitoma for about 3 weeks, 3 game weeks. And then I brought in Mbumo. Mbumo got 5 points and 6 points, which isn't a terrible thing, but it was around that time where I was taking out one injured player and basically brought in Mbumo, which seemed like a really good player to bring in at the time. And that didn't go very well because, Mbumo was injured, shortly after that. So it was kind of a good and a bad thing. So I'm glad that I went from, took out Mitoma when I did. And I brought in Mitoma a little bit earlier as well. But I feel a little bit sort of unfortunate, from that point of view where, I had Mitoma. He, didn't really return. I think I got 1 6-pointer from him or 5-pointer from him. And then I took him out and brought in Mbumo. And so I was just like, oh man, you just couldn't make that shit up, right? Just going from one injured player to another injured player. So there have been a couple of instances where I've gone early on players actually. And, bringing in, if I can spell, bringing in Estupinian earlier on and getting his 6-pointer just in the last game week has been a really good move. I had him a little bit earlier on as well, at the start of the season, probably most did, and then took him out very quickly. But it was really nice to bring him back in, just gut feel. And that's the thing, you've got to make those early moves whenever the opportunity is there. And I have been doing that as much as possible, but it has been challenging as well. It's not been the easiest thing to try and get right as well. And that probably is a good segue into this one here, which is, cutting losses on players when the time is right. And so like with Matoma, taking out Matoma when I did, the time was right doing that. Haaland, I feel like maybe I held on a little bit longer than I probably should have. I'm not sure. Let me know in the chat or in on Spaces as well. Like, when do you still have Haaland? Did you get rid of Haaland? If you did get rid of Haaland, when did you get rid of Haaland? Because I left it until game week 17 to get rid of Haaland. I don't know if that was too late. I know a lot of people got rid of Haaland much earlier on, including, like, I think my brother-in-law got rid of Haaland. I don't know, maybe even before I wildcarded. Maybe it was like game week 6 or 7. I don't know, much earlier. And they've been reaping the benefits of having in Alvarez, and when Alvarez had a really good start to the season and then dropped off a little bit. But so I basically took out Haaland in game week 17, but maybe I could have taken him out earlier. But like in my case, I cut my losses basically, from that point of view. So yeah, happy that I did that. Welcome again to everyone in the chat and also on Spaces. Hey Fran, hey Paulie, hey Stephen, great to see you. And guys on Spaces as well, really great to see you. Thank you so much for turning up. I'm doing a bit of a retrospective of my game week 10 to 20, and for those that are watching on YouTube, you can see my my retro board and my Kanban, and I'm going through details on there with the post-it notes that I'm sharing. Really appreciate you being there, and hope you're all doing well and had a good festive break as well. So cutting losses on players, I feel like maybe I should have done a little bit more of that sooner as well. So I don't know, there's been a couple of players along the way where perhaps I could have got rid of them earlier. Like, I think Trippier is one of those players as well, and I'll come to that in a moment. I think, maybe I could have got rid of Trippier a little bit earlier as well, because I think in his last sort of 5 or 6 game weeks, and he's only scored something like 3 points, which is not much at all. So maybe there's a bit of bias there as well, because I held on to Trippier as long as I did, and obviously because I bagged some of his points much earlier on, it just made sense to kind of just keep him, I guess. So moving on down here, so you can see that actually this time round, those that sort of were part of my previous retro, there's not been as many good things that have happened, which I don't know. It's one of those things where it works out well or it doesn't work out well. I'm not sure. It's really tough from that point of view. But like I can put my hand on my heart and say that I've made the transfers that I did, and I'm quite happy with the transfers that I made, despite them being slightly reckless as well. But I've been having a lot of fun this season, more than I did last season, which is really funny, because I finished 2.5k last season overall, and really happy with that. But I was holding myself back a lot of the time, like making some of the moves that I was making. And so maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure, like, is it because I'm having a not such a great season that I'm being a little bit more experimental? I'm playing differently as well. I'm not sure. I haven't quite sort of worked that out just yet. So yeah, I need to keep doing. Because I'm enjoying it a lot more, I feel like I need to carry on doing what I'm doing, which is having fun, and it is a game at the end of the day. And I've definitely felt like that this season. I've probably had more fun this season than I did in the previous season, which is hilarious. But obviously, I ended the season well, so yeah, there was some happiness, at the end of that. But no, I've been really enjoying this season. I think because I'm not doing well, it's forced me to really think about some of the moves. It's got me sort of playing in a different way, as I mentioned. I'm, perhaps overthinking in a couple of places. Maybe I'm talking to, a few more people a bit more than I probably should. Maybe I've looked at more videos this time as well, like, in terms of FPL content. I'm not sure. Like last season, I didn't watch as much FPL content as well. So I'm not entirely sure what it is. I probably need to look into that a little bit more and just analyze more specifically, the content sort of consumption side of things. But I've definitely been enjoying it a lot more. I feel happier. Like I actually feel like, whenever I've made a transfer or a move or made a decision about something, I've been able to kind of go, yeah, I've made that decision and that's my decision. And, it's been nice to kind of just stand behind that decision and move on from it rather than sort of feeling like, oh, I could have done better and sort of, getting hung up on those decisions. And so it's been nice not to think about, the outcome too much as well. Team value. So I've put this one in the green column and the red column. So what went well and what didn't go so well. So I definitely had a lot less focus on team value this time round than I did in previous seasons, and I have to admit it's been a good thing and a bad thing. So I've been priced out a lot in some of the transfers that I've needed to make, like really close calls as well on those transfers. So where those transfers have been, I don't know, zero point 0.1, zero point 0.2 mil out roughly. It's hurt me quite a lot because I think there was a couple of game weeks, perhaps sort of, at the beginning. I think it was before I wildcarded in game week 9. I think it was much earlier on where there was a lot of price changes happening in the space of one game week or international breaks as well. And I think that went on to the second quarter of my season as well, where there were a lot of price changes, and I didn't jump off the back. I didn't jump onto those price changes, unfortunately. So, but then a part of me was like, no, you focused on price changes a bit too much in previous seasons, so maybe I shouldn't so much this season. But that's come and bit me in the arse as well. So I'm not happy about that as well. So yeah, it's a tricky one. I think it's a fine balance between sort of price changes and jumping on top of those when especially I think when I've been certain about a player, I've jumped on those price changes as quickly as possible. When I've not been certain, and for some reason there's been like some ruthless price changes very earlier on in the game week, like in between the game week as well. So the game week wouldn't have even ended. I think there was a couple of occasions where the game week for us in Australia wasn't ending until like Wednesday morning or something like that, and then there were price changes on Tuesday or Monday, and yeah, anyway, so I didn't jump on those price changes, but that's just like death by a thousand cuts, right? So it just built up over time, and all of a sudden, my team value, actually I didn't look up what my team value was, but I think my team value is around, now it's about 103 mil, maybe close to 104 mil roughly, but that's actually a lot less than what some other teams have. Now, I'm still caring less about it because obviously I have, gained value on players like Trippier that I've kept in the team for, quite a while. Salah, of course, who I've still kept in my team at the moment anyway. I will be doing like a team selection video towards the, closer to the deadline. And I'll probably have a guest on for that one as well. So yeah, it will be good to kind of cover some of the team selection related things for game week 21. However, yeah, I feel like maybe I should have jumped on some of the price changes a little bit earlier and just kind of played the stock kind of market kind of game where you just buy and sell. And I think those that wildcarded a little bit earlier, you reaped the benefits of those price changes. Especially I wildcarded during international break, and so yeah, there weren't many price changes that happened immediately, which is really ironic because there was a lot of people that went early on prices as well. So yeah, it's one of those things like you live and learn. But no, I don't regret it. It's yeah, it is what it is from that point of view. Like I lesson learned from jump on some of those price changes where the opportunity is there and where you're confident about the players as well. So moving on to so look, in a summary, that was what went well in general. I'm sure I'll think of things along the way as I'm talking through these. Like I just put these down very quickly as I was doing a bit of a review of my season so far, like the last 10 game weeks. And so moving on to what was lacking from the last 10 game weeks. So what didn't go well. I got rid of Pickford, which is really funny because and proper fuck my life moment as well, because, I had Pickford right from the beginning and, I think I didn't get a single clean sheet other than game week 8. So right at the end of the game week, right at the end before I've, wildcarded, I'm getting a clean sheet. I think it was a 9-pointer or an 8-pointer or something like that. Very happy with that. But then all of a sudden, Everton starts keeping clean sheets. Like, what the hell? Did you hold on to Pickford? Is anyone in the chat who has Pickford in their team? Good on you. You've had quite a few clean sheets along the way since game week 10. So yeah, well done to those of you that kept Pickford. I know my good friend PSB who isn't in the chat at the moment, but he held on to Pickford, and yeah, I just couldn't believe it. But yeah, no, he's been reaping the benefits of having Pickford in the team. But yeah, it's one of the ultimate trolls, unfortunately, this season as well. So the next one I've got here is I took out Simicast to save money, which sounds really funny because Simicast is so cheap, and has been a really good enabler when Robertson's been out as well. So, but unfortunately, Simicast, taking out Simicast and bringing in Lascelles meant that I saved that little bit of money, which it doesn't seem like much, but I think I saved something like 0.5 or something, and I needed that 0.5, and I can't remember exactly why I needed that 0.5. I think, there was another move that I was trying to make. But this is where like the team value side of things has really, come and bit me, because if I had jumped on some of those early price, drops and rises, then I probably wouldn't have had this predicament where I had to go down to a 4 mil. I think I brought in Lascelles at 3.9 mil as well. So but bringing him in has also had benefits, right? But then I couldn't believe it. I took Simicast out in game week 11, and then game week 12, he's gone and got like a 15-pointer or something like that. So yeah, really gutted about that. And I'm pretty sure I got a pretty big red arrow there as well. So, and like I say, it's one of those things where you sort of go, it feels like the right decision, right move, and I try not to look back too much. And I think when I was doing this retrospective was the first time that I actually looked back and had a look at, what did Simicast get immediately after? And I try not to sort of think about the players too much, that I've taken out, but it is useful to have a think about, okay, well, what changed, and did they continue to get some hauls, or did they continue to score points, and was that move actually worth it? Like in my case, I saved a little bit of money, but in the long run, I probably lost out on, I don't know, maybe about 10 points or so, which is quite a lot when you think about, actually, no, not 10 points, but that seems a bit harsh, because obviously Lascelles, did get quite a few points along the way as well. I think it probably would have been half that, maybe, 5 points, 6 points or so. But still, you've got to look back and sort of wonder, was that actually a good move, and try and sort of learn from that experience as well, moving forward. The other one, I've covered the reckless move, the one that I made, like in regards to overthinking my transfers. But if I jump onto this particular one here with about Areola, so more recently, as we know, those that have kept Areola, and a huge shout out to Tien, who FPL Planner, who's in the chat. Who kept Areola, or had Areola in his team, and also had Dubravka and bench boosted last game week as well, and had a massive, tally of points. I think definitely over 100 points. I can't remember exactly how much, but yeah, well done, FPL Planner. And to others as well, like who kept Areola in the team. So I took out Areola when he was injured, and in my obsession of trying to save money wherever possible, instead of taking out Turner, I took out Areola and brought in Dubravka. And what I probably should have done is taken out Turner, brought in Dubravka, and then held on to, and I would have had Areola and Dubravka as well. So, yeah, it's a tough one, because I feel like I have not been as patient with, and that's a good segue to this one down here, where I don't feel like I've been as patient with injured players as I have done with where I've had a bit of a bias with some of the good players that I've had in the team that were probably good earlier on. So Trippier is a really good example, and I mentioned this earlier as well, where, Trippier got me some double-digit returns. He did really well. I was really happy to have him in the side as well. I stayed patient with him, and it's one of those things that you kind of anchor to the players that have done really well for you, and you have that bias, right? In my case, unfortunately, like I've been more patient with the likes of like Trippier, even Pickford. I probably could have got rid of Pickford much earlier on, rather than sort of just, getting his 0 points or 1 point or 2 pointers, along the way. And there's been other players like that as well, in the last sort of 20 game weeks where I feel like, I probably could have jumped off of a little bit earlier, but I didn't. Look, with Areola, he was injured, didn't know how long he was going to be out for. I jumped off of him. Should have, jumped off of Turner at the time. I think Turner kept a clean sheet. Like he has done all right as well. It's not like he's done terribly, but I probably could have been a bit more sort of patient there. And you can see that over here. Like I'll sort of jump to this part here while we're down here. So the purple column you can't see the title of at the moment, is basically what I've learned, from some of the decisions there. And so for those that are watching, the retrospective for the first time, I'm using, a virtual board called Miro, Miro, and it's a really good tool for just kind of, doing stuff like this, basically, just doing planning and ideating, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I guess a learning from that is to be a bit more patient with some of the players that have been injured. I did the same with Bowen. I'll come to that in a moment. I took out Bowen, and I'm sure many of you are probably gasping if you've held on to Bowen from much, much earlier on. I brought in Bowen, I think, earlier on, in my wildcard, I think it was, or maybe even earlier. I brought in Bowen, and it's been good to have Bowen. But then Bowen got injured. We didn't know what was going on, and so I took him out. And I think I brought in Richarlison, which wasn't a bad transfer. Like Richarlison's been really good, to have as well. Much earlier on, now everyone's like, it feels like everyone's jumping onto Bowen as well. Look, it's been really good. It's been really good, sort of jumping between some of these players. But like I say, it's been hit and miss as well. But I probably do need to be a bit more patient with that. Like I mentioned Trippier, and more specifically, I think he's only scored 3 points in his last 5 game weeks and 6 game weeks if we include, game week 20 as well. So, I obviously jumped off of him in game week 19. Yeah, like I say, I don't really regret it. I don't regret jumping off, as early. I could have jumped off earlier, but I don't know. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Those that know me really well as well, they know that I've been toying with the idea of removing Trippier. I'm pretty sure when I've had, some guests on my show, I'm pretty sure when Prass was on here as well, he was like, you do know that you could probably get rid of Trippier. I'm just gonna put it out there. And I think Tien, FPL Planner, you've mentioned that to me as well. Like, crazy idea, but you could get rid of Trippier. And that's the thing, there are opportunities to jump on and off some of these players. And I think, it's a tricky one because, like in my case, I've probably been a little bit more, I don't know, I've probably had a soft spot for Trippier a bit too longer than I probably should have, basically. Another big factor, I guess, like for me as well, was when I didn't have City cover. So not having City cover when they were ticking along was probably, a bit of a, I don't know. I probably should have brought in Alvarez a little bit earlier, or probably should have brought in Foden or Bernardo, or I don't know, one player at least. And I think what happened is when Haaland was out injured, he didn't play, and I had a auto sub of vice captaincy on Salah, so that was the indicator. And then I think I just held on a little bit longer because we didn't know, is he going to be returning? Isn't he going to be returning? Is he going to be returning? So there was a little bit of that. But then what I did during that time was not bring in any other cover for City. And so there were a lot of managers, and good on you if you did. I know Fran, FPL Fran, who had Alvarez in his side and held on to Alvarez as well. Really good shout, doing that. And I think even though his form dipped a little bit, he was still returning. And so, yeah, really positive from that point of view. So, and I think that's the learning, right? That, to try and sort of get the cover from teams that are playing well. So even though City drop points, I'm really happy about that as a Liverpool supporter. Of course, being at the top of the table is a wonderful feeling. And City dropping points is obviously, it's a great thing because I mean, City are City, right? Like they're probably going to chase it down, and who knows, at the 11th hour probably bag consecutive wins, and Liverpool somehow somewhere is probably going to slip up, I'm sure, especially without Salah as well in the team. So anyway, I'm not going to put that out into the universe. I don't want to put any bad juju out there for Liverpool. For me, to see Liverpool win and rather than me getting a good finish is way more important anyway. So like I said, I wish I had got a little bit of cover there for City, which then I tried to do in game week 20, and I'll come to that in a moment as well, where my obsession of bringing in City cover going into game week 20 meant I took a hit. And so, it's one of those things, like I think I had thought about it earlier and therefore it was stuck in my mind. So, a bit of a rookie mistake on my part where I probably should have switched my tactics a little bit, or my strategy, and decided to, not knee jerk like that with my obsession of bringing in City cover. And look, I don't regret it because I brought in Alvarez and it meant that I got some Alvarez points. So the hit itself sort of was made up for, but it also meant that, I took that hit as well. And if I hadn't have taken the hit, I wouldn't have benched Palmer. So I would have played 5, in midfield. I just looking at the chat and don't jinx us. No, sorry, mate. I'll try not to. But basically by taking the hit to take out, what did I do? I took out Haaland. No, I didn't take out Haaland at the time. I can't remember who I took out. Actually, we'll go and look at the transfers in a moment. But I benched Palmer as a result, I think. And it was like just the worst possible thing that I could have done, because I missed out on his points, and that was huge. And my captaincy picks have also been pretty awful as well. So I think in the same game week, so game week 20, I decided to captain Trent, and then I benched Palmer's points as well. So despite taking a hit as well, the hit would have been fine. I think the hit would have been fine if I had just not benched Palmer, or if I'd captained Salah. So I would have benched Palmer still, but I would have captained Salah, and I calculated it, and it would have been fine. So I wouldn't have been on a 30% also red arrow, which could have been a lot worse as well. And I think that's how I've been playing the game, where I've sort of gone, oh, okay, well that could have been a lot worse. So let's not sort of get too hung up on that as well. I think I talked about sort of transfers and, around like team value as well. And, I have to admit, like with my knee jerking and early transfers, I've made a few early transfers. Even this game week, I've made an early transfer. And you'd think I'd learn after I've done this retrospective, right? But, I made an early transfer only because I'm a bit more sure of the player because of the fixtures. And I'll come to that in a moment. But I think the one thing that I definitely need to do a little bit better is, try and sort of focus on those captaincy picks a little bit more. So after all of that, what did I learn? A huge shout out to those that are still listening on Spaces and on YouTube as well. Thank you for being there. Please smash the like button if you like this type of content as well. There's like 14 or so of you watching at the moment. Thank you so much for being there. Really appreciate it. And so, let's have a look at what I've learned along the way. I'm sure I'll probably think of more things, later as well. One of the things that I did, and I wish I hadn't done so much of, I could think of like Bowen to Diaz as one of the, the obvious moves that I made. But I took out like reliable 90-minute players a couple of times actually this season. So not just in game week 10 to 20. The ones that I remember the most is, the Bowen to Diaz move, which look at the time seemed like a good idea, taking out Bowen, who was injured, and bringing in Luis Diaz. And it just hasn't worked out. Diaz looked pretty good a little bit earlier in the season, and then hasn't really sort of continued that form that he kind of picked up a little bit, and his form dramatically dipped as well. So yeah, a little bit gutted about that. But yeah, what I did, and a bit of a rookie mistake as well. Actually, there's been a couple of rookie mistakes. If you're listening from beginning to where I am up to now, there's been a couple of rookie mistakes where I've taken out reliable 90-minute players and brought in, minute risk players as well. And so Diaz obviously missed out on, when his dad got like his parents got kidnapped, and his dad was still kidnapped as well. And as part of that, it's really funny actually. This should be a bit of an arrow. I'll put that in there now. Avoid narratives. That's exactly what they are. And so I think I was listening to FPL IQ, and I love that. I love that show. I love listening to the FPL IQ guys. And I think Rob on there had mentioned, the narrative around having Diaz's dad getting back and everything, and like jumping on Diaz at the time, and so I did. I went from Bowen to Diaz because Bowen was an issue, and yeah, look, it hasn't worked out. But the narrative that I'd playing in my head was, oh, wouldn't it be amazing for Diaz's dad to see him score a hat trick or score a goal, and he's probably going to pull up his t-shirt again, and probably going to be some cute message or something for his dad again, and for everyone to have a look at. But look, that didn't work out either. And so yeah, and I don't know why, like from a narrative point of view, I'm not sure why. I don't normally do that, and so I wanted to put it down in the learnings column as it's a narrative at the end of the day. It's not like, it's just a narrative. So yeah, not to focus too much on the narratives. I think I covered the being patient with transferred injured players, especially. I think I know quite a few people, so a lot of them, friends, family, who held on to their injured players on their bench for a lot longer. I did a lot more of that last season, but there was a tiny part of me that was like, no, chase the upside, and then go and take them out and go and jump on another player. And that hasn't worked out. And so I wish I had been a little bit more patient in the last 10 game weeks. And I'll definitely be doing a lot more of that, being a little bit less reckless as well, around some of those transfers, and just kind of, being a little bit more conscious about that. And I think it's a really fine balance, because I've been enjoying this season a lot more because I've been a little bit more reckless, and I've been a little bit more knee jerky and chasing the upside a little bit more, and having some fun picks. I think I've used the term fun pick in conversation with a lot of like the managers that I'm closest to and I connect with on a regular basis. When I've sort of gone, I can do the fun pick or I can do this one, I've often gone with the fun pick because it has been fun, and I have enjoyed, whether it's gone well or not gone well, I have enjoyed the decision making or the fun pick process, right? But I probably will rein that in a little bit more and just pull back on that, and try not to make too many reckless fun picks. I mean, they can be reckless and fun, or they can be reckless or fun. They can be both. Definitely want to give a little bit more focus on team value. I feel like as we're going into the second half of the season, it is important, but it's not necessarily something I want to be obsessive over. I think it's just making sure I'm jumping on the opportunities to, jump on like price drops, especially, and price changes. Like I've already had a price drop for having Salah in the team, and still, I think I managed to avoid Son's price drop, and I've already had a price drop for Salah. And I'm not sure, like I'll leave this part of the conversation for, later on towards the end of, this this period, like before we go into game week, 21. I'll probably be doing a stream next Friday, and that'll be like, that will be Friday morning for those in the UK, and Friday evening for those of us in Australia, and anywhere in between will probably be afternoon sometime. So I'll probably do a stream on Friday to talk about team selection and all of that, and what I'm thinking over there. But I've still held on to Salah at the moment. I'm not sure if I'll get rid of him. I'm thinking about it at the moment, but I'll cover that on Friday. So let's talk about captain captain penalty takers I've got here and play penalty takers, and I think that is a bit more sort of more recently that I've experienced that. I think Press sort of mentioned this to me, when we were having an off the cuff conversation. A little while ago where he was like he's drawn to penalty takers, bringing penalty takers into the team is one thing, but also captaining penalty takers. I think that is a common strategy for a lot of FPL managers. I have captained Watkins along the way as well. I have, last season I think I triple captained Rashford, and got his haul as well. So I've not necessarily always stuck to my guns with, captaining penalty takers, but I feel like that's where it's bit me, a bit more this season than it has in previous seasons. So I think that's somewhere that I'd probably want to emphasize a little bit more is, captaining the penalty takers and trying not to bench penalty takers as well. Like I know that there's been quite a few people that have got Douglas Luiz, for instance, in their side, and they've benched Douglas Luiz, and in my case, I played Solanke in the team and benched Palmer in my case. And so look, not ideal, but then at the end of the day it felt like the right move. Solanke's been on form, Luton had been pretty decent at home, and again you could say that is borderline narrative, but it's not. It's like it is fact as well. Like Luton have been decent at home. But and that's probably a good point about, the perception side of things. So, over here I've got perception of how good or bad some teams are, right? Like, so, like whenever Sheffield has played like low block, teams against them haven't done incredibly well. We've seen that more recently as well, where, the likes of Villa or West Ham or, even City, like they've not done that well. Liverpool didn't do that well either against Luton. So it is tricky. Like, my perception of like how good some of the teams are and how bad some of the teams are is shifting a little bit more. And I think that's really challenging when we've seen them last season and, the first quarter of the season as well, this season, where we've seen, the bad teams do really, really bad, but they have improved as well. So I think my perception needs to shift along the way ever so slightly as well. Let me know in the chat, is there a team that you thought have surprised you, like as a team, like whether they've done a lot better or they've done a lot worse, whichever way it may be, have they sort of, which team has sort of surprised you the most in terms of, how they're playing as a whole? I have to admit, like, I don't know if this is consistent every like a lot of the time, but jumping on some of the short-term picks or the opportunities to jump on some of the short-term picks have paid off really well, like for a lot of FPL managers. So those that had the advantage of jumping onto Maguire when Maguire came back into the team for United, good on you guys for jumping onto Maguire. There was somehow so many clean sheet points there as well, and so, that was a really good shout. And those that jumped onto He-Chan as well, like I think when Neto was out, really good shout, doing that. So there's been a couple of short-term picks, even like Everton defence, there's been a couple of short-term sort of picks where some managers have jumped onto. Kudos, as well. Really, really good shout doing that because, I've like last season I played I held on to players for more than 3 or 4 game weeks, and this season I've tried to do that, and then I've jumped off and on some players, like where I've tried to do that, like Diaz is a great example of that as well. So I feel a bit sort of like I've missed out on those opportunities, like where, Maguire probably would have been a really good shout to go there. And Kudus as well, like a really good shout to go there. Like instead of going Bowen over to Diaz, was the right pick to go Bowen to Kudus? I don't know, maybe. And I probably would have been 2 double-digit hauls, more happier, perhaps. And that's the thing, like, it's good to look back, but it's not good to obsess over, the decisions that you have made or didn't make. And so in my case, I'm glad that I am looking back and sort of looking at those moments and wondering, what could I do differently in the future when similar sort of circumstances arise or similar opportunities arise? Should I do more of, or what should I do less of? And look, the last one that I've got here before I jump into some of my transfers and like what my game week ranks have been and, what my overall rank has been so far. Don't be reckless, even if it's fun. I'm just trying to be less reckless as much as possible. It is really, really, hard as well. Because I'm having fun making some of those like random transfers, like wherever possible. It is a bit challenging as well. So yeah, I need to find a balance between reckless and fun and yeah, just be sort of a little bit more realistic about it. Oops, zoomed out way too much there. Let's go over here. So season so far. So last sort of 10 game weeks, you can see there, I'm actually better off. So like if we look at it as an incremental kind of push in the right direction, there has been a couple of dips where I did sort of go into, in within the 1 mil rank. However, you can see here as well that I did improve ever so slightly. So it's not great, but it's not terrible either. And this is where you've got to be less sort of hard on yourself, and try and be a little bit kind, in regards to how the game week rank has gone or the overall rank has gone as well. And I've not been looking at it or obsessing over it too much. I have been looking at my game week ranks a little bit more, and you can see here, like game week 14, something went right there. I had a higher game week rank there, which was really good. Really happy with that. But then it dropped down, a fair bit as well. So yeah, and you can see, like, I've not taken, like, in the last 10 game weeks, I've only taken 3 hits. It's really not that bad. Okay, so my team value is maybe a little bit higher, although I don't know if that's my actual team value or my sort of, if I sold everyone in the team and what that value would be, I'm not sure. But if I compare to game week 10, where I was 2.3 mil or 2.4, if I round that up a little bit more, finishing game week 20 or the first half of the season at 1.1 mil, I can't complain. That's like half, more than half. And so I'm happy with that from that point of view. So yeah, not ideally where I would want to be so far. I think like this time last season, I was like hovering around top 20K roughly for the remainder of the season before I sort of finished at 2.5K. So it's one of those things, like I like I mentioned in my retrospective, as I sort of talked through a lot of it, there's been some reckless moves there that I've made, my captaincy picks, and so I'll show you like some of my transfers as well. So what I've done here is I've just taken a screenshot of my transfers that I've made, and I've let me just move this over here so you don't really need to see when and just which ones there. So the transfers that I've made over here, for instance, if we start from the bottom there, I don't actually remember like taking out. Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, that's right. I didn't have Saka in the team, and then I took out Maddison because Maddison got injured, and so that was a good move. Like that wasn't a terrible move because obviously Maddison was out injured. He's still out injured. So what I've done is put a bit of a traffic lighting, thing over here where I've kind of assessed each of the transfers and sort of gone, okay, well, was that a good transfer or not a good transfer? So Maddison out for Saka was a good transfer. Tsimikas out for Lascelles. I've left that amber because, Tsimikas continued to do well, had a couple of clean sheets, got a 15-pointer. Lascelles did okay as well. And so for a 3.9, defender that I brought in, I honestly couldn't complain. Mitoma out for Mbumo. It was like one bad M out for another bad M in this case. And so, yeah, it's one of those ones. And again, an amber move. Not crazy about it, but yeah, it wasn't terrible either. I got some points there along the way. The next move, which I've mentioned already, wasn't a great move for me, like taking out Bowen just because I thought he was going to be out injured a little bit longer. I probably shouldn't have done that. So I took out Bowen, brought in Diaz. Not a good move. I took out Cash, brought in Colwill. Colwill got actually, so Chelsea got a couple of clean sheets over here, and so I'm quite, yeah, like I said, I'm quite happy that I did that because Cash was not returning, and I think he was injured as well, or he was benched. I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but yeah, he wasn't really returning, and so yeah, it made sense to take him out. Good transfer. Took out Mbumo. As soon as Mbumo was injured, brought in Palmer. One of the best transfers I made. Annoyed that I benched him in game week 20 anyway. And then I took out Lascelles and brought in Porro. So Porro's been a really good transfer for me as well. You know, I managed to get a couple of his points as well. Like, he's not had a massive haul in that time, but he's still been ticking away and it's been a bit of a differential as well. So really happy with taking out Lascelles then and bringing in Porro. So Areola, that's not been a great move for me. I think taking out Areola, bringing in Dubravka, even though, you know, not to say Dubravka's been terrible, but I took out, I went from having double Newcastle defence to then, going back to having double Newcastle defence, which hasn't really worked out that well. I mean, it's been okay when Newcastle have done well and when Trippier was like, obviously, benched or not playing or something or another going on or just getting -1 or something like that as well. So, yeah, not ideal, but not terrible either. But yeah, I'm really gutted about that move because in hindsight, I would have held on to Areola and they've been keeping a couple of clean sheets there as well. So yeah, if anything, I probably could have held on to Areola. Good move, taking out Haaland for Solanke. Obviously, that's going to be a whole other conundrum, trying to bring Haaland back in. Haven't decided when I'm going to bring Haaland back in at the moment. Not sure yet, but yeah, we'll sort of, make a decision on that, in the next game week or two. Actually, the next game week is lasting almost 2 weeks anyway. So yeah, I'm sure I'll decide by then. The other move over here, I took out Gordon. I think, I can't remember exactly why. So I don't know if it was because Gordon was benched or I think he had maybe a mild injury and then came back, or I think Howe was just playing with our emotions as well, like where he was saying that Gordon was, he weren't too sure what was going on with Gordon. And so I took out Gordon, brought in Son. And it's an amber move because Son has been returning. And so I've been reaping the benefits there. Obviously, I had money from, taking out Haaland. But then Gordon was Gordon was ticking along as well. He was getting like an assist and some points as well. So I feel like this was a bit of an amber move. I did eventually take out Luis Diaz, brought in Richarlison. Happy with that move. That was generally a good move. Richarlison has been doing, reasonably well. He's been, getting points and has been a differential for quite some time. I'm not sure how much of a differential he's going to be, going into game week 21, because obviously a lot of players are now thinking about, Son out, Salah out. And so, they're the top picks at the moment, it seems like, are, Bowen if you didn't have Bowen, Richarlison, and, Jota's on everyone's minds at the moment as well, is from what I'm seeing at the moment. Jota is also on my mind as well. But yeah, look, it's, it was a good move. I took out Colwill as well. So this is where I noticed like Chelsea's defense started to kind of dip a little bit. Chelsea have just been unpredictable. Like they've been, scoring some goals, and you could see Palmer doing really well. And earlier on in the season, Sterling was doing really well. And those that had some of those short-term picks of, bringing in Sterling and, yeah, I mean, those, I didn't touch Reece James this time, but I know quite a few managers went to Reece James as well. So I thought Colwill back then was a good pick, and I got a couple of clean sheets, but then it hasn't really been consistent either. So taking out Colwill and bringing in Trent, I wasn't too sure about this move because, I think going on Trent earlier was probably the play. I think I brought in Trent in game week 19, so it's not that long ago, only two game weeks ago. But those that brought in Trent maybe around here somewhere, I think game week 16, 15 sort of time frame was probably the move, even earlier, like those that brought in Trent a lot earlier. Yeah, good on you. I think that's where he bagged a couple of those double digits as well, where he got a goal and had an assist or two as well. So, but I'm really happy with having, Trent in the team at the moment, especially with Salah going off to AFCON. And, we're going to see a slightly different sort of version of Liverpool. I think we're going to see that later on today, those that are watching, actually not today, or today, Sunday for us over here in Australia. Where when they play against Arsenal in the FA Cup third round. So that'll be interesting to see, and how Jota lines up, and because Szoboszlai is out at the moment as well. He's going to be out for a couple of game weeks, it seems like. So yeah, I'm really curious to see how we shape up. Jota can play in Salah's position. But so can Harvey Elliott, and I really like Harvey Elliott as well. Like, I think that he's got a really good opportunity to get back into that side and be starting while Salah's away as well. So let's see. I think it's going to be interesting how we line up. So Jota is potentially a good pick there, but Trent could play a bit more. Like, he's been playing a bit more of a midfield role anyway, inverting the way he's been inverting. So I think there's a real opportunity there with Trent. So yeah, I'm really glad that I brought him in. I had enough of Trippier, so I took out Trippier and jumped onto Estupinian. And again, this was a bit of a punty pick. Like, I didn't know, like, Estupinian, I think, only had like 45 minutes, if that, in game week 19, and he managed to get a goal in that, which was a fantastic goal. I saw the opportunity to take out Trippier and just kind of part with him, and was quite content to part with him. I think the 3 points in 5 or 6 game weeks was, or 5 game weeks at the time anyway, the 3 points in 5 game weeks was the decider for me, to jump off of Trippier and bring in Estupinian early. And so, yeah, really happy with that. And lo and behold, Brighton keep a clean sheet for the first time this season, and it was really nice to get Estupinian 6 points off the back of that clean sheet as well. So, and as you can see, I took out Archer and brought in Alvarez, and so this is what I mean. Like, I was playing 3-5-2 for majority of the season so far, and in game week 20, where I probably could have rolled the transfer and played Palmer, and not captain Trent, captain Salah, it would have been an entirely different narrative, for this game week, where I finished anyway. Because, I lost out on Salah's captaincy points, and then I lost out on, I think I was trying to be cute with the Trent captaincy pick there. Did anyone else not captain Salah and go for another Liverpool player? Like, did anyone captain Darwin? I saw quite a few Darwin, captaincy picks. I went with Trent. I was on Salah for so long as well, and decided to go Trent there, but mostly because, and that was like not so much the captaincy pick, but the hit. The only reason I took the hit and ended up benching Palmer was because I was obsessed with trying to bring in City cover. And so not having a City player in the side meant that, and I didn't want to take out anyone from my midfield. I was really happy with my midfield, but it meant that I ended up benching Palmer because I took out Archer and decided to play 3-4-3. And so, look, in hindsight, I wouldn't have played 3-4-3. I would have done, 3-5-2, and would have just, And Curran, I totally blame you for that. And FPL, no, I'm joking. I think there was a bunch of us, Curran, and FPL Crisis as well, who's having a fantastic season, although sort of had a bit of a dip, but is still in the top, 15K or 20K or so. Look, I decided to go Trent captaincy, which again I don't regret, because if that had come off, it would have been a great captaincy shout. But like I say, I ended up playing the formation that I did and benching Palmer because I wanted City cover, and I brought in Alvarez basically. I'm just going to pause there for a moment and move over to my captaincy picks as well. Just to kind of show you how that's been going, because that's been probably not what I would expect, from a captaincy sort of pick side of things. I think last season I managed to get my captaincy picks right about, I think when I looked on the using Fantasy Premier League tools. If you've not used that site previously, they've got some really good tools there. You just put in your ID and it will tell you, like, your captaincy picks and whether they were good picks or not. There's lots of other tools there as well. But only 55% successful captaincy picks. So this is obviously looking at, I know like for this retrospective, we're doing game week 10 to game week 20, but this is looking at my season so far. So this is all 20 game weeks, so 55%. But you can see, over there, like with the reds and the greens there, what my captaincy picks have been like, and they've not been great, especially the last four. They've not been great. So it's been mostly mostly red, unfortunately. Like my captaincy picks have not been great at all. And I feel like I got really lucky with the pick, the vice captaincy, and it's so important. Like it sounds so obvious, right? Like I've not been as thoughtful in my captaincy picks as I have done in the past. And even with my vice captaincy picks as well. So, I in the rush of doing like just picking my side, because like last season I did a lot of travel, and I didn't get to watch many games, and I went early on, just kind of locking in my team a lot earlier as well. And so, while doing that, I wasn't as good as picking my vice captaincies as I probably should have, and maybe because like I was captaining Salah majority of last season, Kane and Haaland, of course, perma captain, and so didn't have to think too hard about it. So it was really easy to do that. But this time round, I'm so glad that I put my vice captaincy on Salah there, because that could have gone terribly wrong. But it's something I'm definitely going to be a little bit more sort of cognizant of and mindful about. But yeah, you can see there, like my captaincy picks have not worked out. I probably won't. I'll probably avoid captaining a non-penalty taker. Like you can see there, I've captained Watkins like twice in the last 10 game weeks. Worked out once, didn't work out the other time. It's a really tough one, because like I think, Douglas Luiz obviously, has been taking the pens, and he has had quite a few pens as well. So yeah, it's a tough call to make. But yeah, look, I need to do better over here. So I want to change that number. So over here where I've got 55%, I'm hoping that it'll be, in the next sort of the third quarter of my season. So the next sort of, 8 game weeks or so. Yeah, I think I'm going to try and sort of nail my captaincy picks as much as possible, and not get swayed by good friends like Karen, who's in the chat on YouTube. Yeah, it's tough though, because again, it was a fun pick. It was a fun pick, and I had a lot of like, if it had come off, it would have been fantastic as well. So yeah, there you have it. That's basically my game week 10 to game week 20 retrospective. In summary, like if you haven't done something like this before, I highly recommend it. It's so interesting to go back and have a look at everything. The process that I took anyway was, I just took the time to have a look at what I liked and disliked, and, what went well, what didn't go well, and, what I learned along the way. I went back into, looking at my each team, as like each week's team even, and having a look at, what worked out, like as a team, like as overall, what was working, not working. And then looked at, obviously my ranks and my game week ranks and my overall ranks as well, just to kind of see, what I've done along the way. As you can see, I've not taken that many hits. I know a lot of FPL managers have taken more hits, but it's not necessarily about how many hits you take. It's like the strategic hits, basically, is the most important thing. You could see there my last hit obviously didn't sort of, pay off, but the hit that I took in game week 17 was worthwhile. So some of my hits have been, paying off as well. And so, yeah, it's being selective, but this gave me the opportunity to kind of go back and have a look at some of those moves and, look at the players as well. So just doing this red, green and amber sort of process as well meant that, I was looking at those each transfer more specifically, what has worked and what hasn't worked, not from an instant gratification point of view. Like sometimes you make a transfer and obviously, you won't get those returns straight away. And, I think it's the longer run sort of side of things and, looking at, okay, well, there's still some good fixtures coming up, and there are some the player is on form, so it makes sense, right? Like Trent is still on form, for example. And so, yeah, so I think like there's areas where I can improve, like being less knee jerky, not going too early on my transfers, not being obsessive over like bringing in like cover, but to the detriment of my team as well. So there's a bunch of things that I could have done differently for sure. And so I'm going to take all of these learnings into, the second half of the season and focus in on, where I can sort of make little incremental improvements as well. Like I want to improve definitely. Like I'm not looking at this season as how can I get a top, 200K or, 500K or 1 mil, whatever. I'm not looking at it from a rank point of view. My first season, I was, in 200K, was really happy with that. Second season went really, really well. So again, really happy with that. But I don't see myself getting another 2.5K finish. And so, I feel like I've got it out my system and it's happened. And so I'm having a lot of fun this season. So I don't want to sort of take away the fun as well. So I want to continue having fun, doing a little bit of that upside chasing, making some of those risky moves wherever I can. Maybe making a few more defensive moves though, because I've sort of gone from one extreme to the other. I've gone from, making very safe transfers, last season to being reckless basically. And I think I've used the word reckless quite a few times. So that would probably be the word to summarize, my game week 10 to game week 20. I've been a little bit more reckless than I probably should have been. So yeah, lots of learnings there. Hopefully you guys took something away from that as well. Learned something, from my season anyway. So these are very much, like I say, off the cuff chats where, they're impromptu, unplanned, very much what I'm thinking and feeling in the moment as well. None of it is scripted. And it's been really nice to share my journey so far since I started, sharing my journey on Spaces, on X and on YouTube as well. Thank you so much for all your support as well. It's been really lovely to have you guys here as an audience and to just talk to and connect with as well. So yeah, really, really appreciate it. And please do subscribe if you've not subscribed already. And yeah, please do like this video as well. I've been doing a couple more shorts as well in between things. That's been a lot of fun, actually. Just takes a little bit of thinking out of it. I haven't done many solo ones, actually. So I have had quite a few guests on recently in the last couple of months, and that's been fantastic. I think, the response has been amazing, for those that have reached out to come on the show as well. I've had a lot of fun, talking about my guests' season so far and their style of play and just getting to know them a little bit more. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, just getting to know, a whole bunch of different people as well in the community. This is my first solo one in quite a while. So I'm hoping to do a few more solo ones as well and just sharing my journey and my transfers and things like that as well. And like I say, it's all about sort of, having fun and enjoying, the transfers that you're making, not getting too obsessive about your rank as well. If you're doing well, fantastic, continue doing well. Wishing you all green arrows as well. I will be back on Friday with football chat box. So Ryan, who's one of our FPL managers over here in Australia, looking forward to catching up with him on Friday and doing a bit of a team selection video and getting to know him a little bit more and looking at the upcoming game weeks as well. And basically, what are we doing about Son and Salah as well? So thank you once again. Please like, subscribe. Please share as well. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Take it easy. And catch you guys in the next one. Thanks again. See ya. Bye.